Hello everyone and welcome to my channel once again. So, do you know the saying, you shouldn't bite more than you can chew? Well, I kinda didn't listen to it, and I'm really sorry that I'm behind with like 2 or even 3 builds, and I really hope that just my gameplays together with the Max Roll Planner to see what items I am using and what skills, Paragon Board, etc. I'm using are enough for you to enjoy the builds in T100 and against Uber bosses as much as I enjoy them. But because the build that's most sought after and requested is Abattoir of ZIR, I decided to start with that one. So actually, before we start, let me say this. It doesn't matter whether a content creator has 1 subscriber or 100,000. There pretty much, at this point, is not a single person, well, apart from people actually working for Blizzard, who knows like anything about the Abattoir of ZIR, apart from 3 things. The first thing is that it's basically greater rifts from Diablo 3. So you will have a given time to kill a given number of enemies, which will spawn the boss, and that's how you finish that layer. We will have 25 layers of Abattoir of ZIR, and each level will equal to 3 levels of Nightmare Dungeon, meaning that at the last level, 25 Abattoir of ZIR, it's gonna be equivalent to 175 Nightmare Dungeon. That brings us to the second point. The second point being that against T175 monsters, we are gonna need 18.6 thousand armor to reach the physical cap. So this is what we should be, especially as rogues, be aiming for, because armor and just damage reductions on our gear is our main source of tankiness. We don't have as many like shields, barriers and whatnot like other classes like Barbarian or Sorcerer, for example. So it's very important for us to reach that. And the third thing is that the people who actually played Abattoir of ZIR during BlizzCon said that monsters will mostly scale in HP and their tankiness, not so much in damage. They will obviously scale in damage as well, but it's not gonna be the main stat that they scale in. What that means is that when we hit the wall of not being able to go further in the layers, it's probably gonna be because of not having enough damage. And like all of this, like all in all, this means that yeah, no one really knows. Like we don't even know whether we will really need the 18.6 thousand armor to reach the physical damage reduction cap, because we might just not have enough damage, and maybe 17,000 or even less armor will be enough to survive, and we will just have to, you know, change some affixes, move some points to get more damage. Maybe we will have to not play Doomringer because the HP won't, like the survivability won't be the problem, but once again, the damage will be. So not playing Doombringer to get another offensive aspect might be the way. Things like that. And like really, like not myself, not anyone else knows. So that's why I say this is a theory craft, because no build you can find online at this point in time is precisely what you're gonna be using. Like a lot of the changes will be happening to all the builds all around the world, all around the Diablo world, based on the information and based on the actual experience of playing Abattoir of ZIR. But I did my best. I did my best to absolutely min-max on the new glyph, to absolutely min-max on damage, together with survivability, to find a balance between the two. And yeah, let's get right into it. Let's see how it worked out. And I actually have 2 builds ready for you. One is Twisting Blade build, and the other is actually a ranged build with Penshot and Rapid Fire, which I really think will be the main build for Abattoir of ZIR, because playing ranged builds is safer in terms of our ability to actually avoid stuff, guide around enemies, to not get hit like at all, which will again allow us to maybe ditch some defensive affixes, defensive nodes, etc. in favor of more damage. So me personally, I'm gonna be starting Abattoir of ZIR as ranged rogue. Now let's start with the Twisting Blades build. Let's start with the Paragon board. So in the starting board, we are going, well, pretty much for the standard. We are using versatility. We will either be using versatility or devious. It depends how hard the boss actually is, because against the boss, devious will do nothing. Okay, but if the boss is easy and it's the mobs that are the issue, then devious will probably be the winner here. So we are taking all of the armor nodes here. As I said, we are trying to reach 18.6 thousand armor after disobedience. Both of these builds can reach that while using the armor potion, our armor elixir. I could make it so that you do not need the elixir, but we would lose so much damage going for the armor nodes that I don't think it's gonna be worth it. Like, there is no reason not to use an elixir during Abattoir of ZIR. So definitely my recommendation there. Then we go up where we are using the cheap shot board. In the cheap shot board, we are using the new glyph Tears of Blood, because this, together with the tricks of the trade board, are the most stacked boards with core stats, as it was tested during BlizzCon. The Tears of Blood glyph actually counts all of the core stats, not just our class specific core stat. So we need to dump all of the points in its radius, and it will get us to 4,370, almost 1% increased damage. It will also further boost our devious rare node, so that we gain even more damage to crowd controlled enemies. So this is really the best board to go for. Tricks of the trade board, on the other hand, offers an armor node. So if we put Tears of Blood glyph there, we can go for way higher armor values than with this one. But as I said, for now, it seems that the damage will be the issue, not as much the survivability, so I'm focusing on a good balance of both, but mostly on the damage. Okay, so definitely cheap shot board here, still taking all of the damage to crowd controlled enemies that we can get on our way to other boards. Still taking cheap shot because we are non-stop gonna be fighting against group of enemies, so this will be up at all times. Taking some more armor, some more DR on our way to other boards. Then we go to the left where we are using Lyrana's Instinct, and here we are using Control. This is one of the two boards that can reach 49 intelligence, the other being Exploit Weakness, but Exploit Weakness board can really only be played in full glass cannon builds, which is not something we can do here. So Control in Lyrana's, again maxing out on the damage to crowd controlled enemies here, 145%, taking, all of the resistance nodes around, as well as going down here, taking some max HP and poison resistance, because this build for the Twisting Blades, pretty much the same build as the Hulk build for T100, can reach 70% resistances without having a single resistance affix on the gear. Then we go up, we are using Tricks of the Trade here, because it's very, very easy in this board to gain a lot of armor. As you can see, 300 armor right at the start, as well as, easily getting 25 strength, 29 actually in this, right now, which will activate Bane. In case survivability is an issue, I think we will simply change Bane for Turf for more damage reduction from close enemies. But Bane is essentially 10% damage increase to our, PI. So yeah, let's start and let's go with Bane first. Also, obviously, the 18.6 thousand armor is for the 25th level, the final level that Blizzard themselves said no one is actually supposed to beat. So I think we will be good enough on defensives, you know, the first several layers. Then, from the cheap shot, we go up. Here we are taking the no witness board. Nothing has changed here. Still the best board to use efficiency because, well, we pretty much just, you know, get it by these two points. So it's very easy to proc, and it gives us a lot of max HP, which is great, especially when using Doomringer, because it scales off of all of our other max HP, you know, modifiers. So this will shoot us up in HP quite a lot. And then our last board is here to the right, which is Eldritch boards, and we are using Kenny here. Kenny, because, you know, the stronger the enemies get, the more HP they get, the longer we are gonna fight them. So Kenny will be up, you know, during the majority of the fight. So we really want that to get as much damage as possible, and plus it will help us against the bosses as well. This is really good glyph for killing high HP and priority targets. Here we are taking, you know, all of the non-physical damage nodes to increase our damage further. The Eldritch Bounty legendary node itself, because once again it increases our damage even further and actually gives us some extra maximum resistance, poison resistance, which will help us against those like poison pools, etc. And here it's very easy to get some extra resistances to all elements, as well as damage reduction to damage over time effects, which it was found out that a lot of the damage over time effects from the enemies are actually way stronger than they are supposed to be. So this will further increase our survivability. So that's it for the Paragon board for the Twisting Blades build. Now let's look at the skill tree. Not much has changed here, you know, still using puncture, enhanced puncture and fundamental puncture for slow and vulnerable, as well as all of our other lucky hit procs. You know, 5 points Twisting Blades, enhanced Twisting Blades and improved Twisting Blades because of the days. 3 points into Sturdy for some extra DR, and this time around I'm actually using 2 points in Siphoning Strikes combined with our Vampiric Power, Undying and Doomringer. This should provide us with enough HPS gain, like we should be healing so much that hopefully it's gonna be enough. And maybe, like, once again, maybe Abattoir of ZIR will either be you get one shot or you don't. You cannot survive one shots, or like you cannot heal back from one shots, so 2 points in Siphoning Strikes might not make much sense, you know, so we will move these points around. So a lot of stuff can still change, but at this point I think it's safe to say that 2 points in Siphoning Strikes will be the way to go. 1 point in Shadow Step, Enhanced Shadow Step and Disciplined Shadow Step. This will give us a really nice cooldown reduction on the Shadow Step, which will give us almost 100, or not almost, but 100% uptime on Tybalt's Will increased damage. It's also a great source of Unstoppable in case we get CC'd. 1 point in dash for the mobility. This will allow us to, with the orbiting blades from Twisting Blades, to apply more PI to more enemies. Plus it's great for escaping AoEs, etc. Simply jumping around the map. 3 points in agile, because it's a free 12% dodge. If you dodge an attack, you completely ignore the damage, okay? So being able to completely ignore the damage, especially if there are gonna be like hordes of enemies, hordes of ranged enemies, etc., is extremely valuable. And I would say not taking this, like even at this point, just T100, not taking agile is just trolling. I think it's definitely just trolling. Then 3 points in Exploit, 3 points in precision imbuement for some increased crit strike chance. I am going for shadow imbuement here, enhanced, and mixed shadow imbuement for some extra AoE with the explosions, plus the 12% increased non-physical damage, which works for our PI. Then 5 points in poison imbuement, enhanced poison imbuement, and blended poison imbuement. 3 points in deadly venom for some more poison damage, 2 points in debilitating toxins for extra DR against poisoned enemies, and 1 point in alchemical knowledge, because there are gonna be so many enemies that we fight against that you know, poisoning 15 enemies to get 15% extra attack speed is probably gonna be very, very easy. Then 3 points into innervation, because of course we need to regen energy to actually use our abilities. 3 points in alchemical's fortune, and 3 points in second wind. All of the rogue builds are heavily lucky hit based, so taking all of these notes is very important because it gives us more healing, it gives us more bursting venoms, you know, which turns into damage. It gives us, you know, more energy from innervation, which turns into more damage. So definitely important to get a lot, and I mean a lot, of lucky hit. Then 1 point in adrenaline rush and 3 points in haste. And the final node being close quarters combat, because it gives us, you know, it turns our damage to crowd controlled enemies into multiplicative damage increase. In this case, with this build, it's 146. Okay, so we really want to maximize on this. Then for the equipment, a lot of you might be surprised, but we are not playing Shaco when playing Twisting Blades. Now let me explain why. We are very aspect starved due to playing both Doombringer and Condemnation. So we actually had to move our Blade Dancer's aspect to the amulet. Okay, so we are essentially missing an offensive aspect on our gear. So we really want to use a normal helmet, because it will help us reach the armor that we need. It will help us reach the 18,600 armor. It has very good affixes, like apart from the 4 skills from Shaco and the resource generation, it essentially gives us the same stuff. Cooldown reduction, 4 ranks to poison imbuement, which is our main source of damage, then the total armor, which is going to be extremely important to have, and max life. Together with aspect of might, it will also give us the same 20% damage reduction as Shaco gives us. Okay, without normal helmet, with using Shaco, we would have to move too many points around in our Paragon board to reach the armor cap of 18,600, which would, like, eventually or essentially, it would make us lose a lot of damage, you know, making Shaco a worse choice than normal helmet. For our chest, still the same stuff. Total armor, DR close, DR flat, DR distant, and disobedience aspect. You know, if we didn't use Doombringer and we had our Blade Dancer's amulet there, we could be using Shaco, because then we could put disobedience on our amulet so that it has increased the value, and it would be enough. But yes, Doombringer means no Shaco, pretty much. For our gloves, again, still the same stuff. Crit strike chance, lucky hit chance, attack speed, 4 ranks of Twisting Blades with bursting venoms aspect. For our pants, we are using the Tybalt's Will, because we really want to abuse the bug, because basically Blizzard, again, in the interview, said that they want us to be using all of the bugs that we can find to compete in the Abattoir of ZIR. So Tybalt's Will is an obvious choice here. Then for our boots, we are using normal boots with dodge chance, movement speed, DR injured, and then either dexterity or all stats. It depends on your rolls on your crossbow. You might want to go for all stats to be able to reach all of the Paragon nodes in the Paragon board. But here I went with dexterity. As you can see, no poison affix. I mean, not that there is no poison affix, but no resistance affix on any of our gear. We don't need that. We covered all of that with our Paragon board and our gems. Then for our two-hander, we are using a crossbow with damage to CC enemies, damage to close enemies, all stats, dexterity, and aspect of corruption. Again, as I said, it will require us to do an insane amount of damage to actually be able to finish the run, to finish the layer. So not playing with aspect of corruption is like unimaginable for me. Like maybe we could also be using accelerating here, but for now I would definitely go for corruption because it's just, you know, good old 1.8 multiplier to our poison damage. So yeah. Then onto our amulet. So with the Twisting Blades build, we are going for 3 ranks of all imbuements, total armor, DR from distant enemies or DR flat, and 3 ranks of exploit. Now you might be wondering, why no movement speed? Well, it's simple really, because Twisting Blades give us 60% movement speed thanks to combo points, meaning that we don't actually need movement speed on our amulet to reach 200 to maximize on Ravenous and its attack speed bonus. And because the greater risk in Diablo 3, I personally haven't played it, but I like to do a research. I watched a lot of videos about it. We don't really move that much, and we are pretty much never out of combats, meaning that the uptime on the 60% movement speed from Twisting Blades will be 100%, thus wasting an affix for movement speed on the amulet here would make no sense whatsoever. The aspect here is Blade Dancers for obvious reasons, so that the Twisting Blades return to us and poison all the enemies on its path. Plus, as I said a million times, Blade Dancers aspect apply PI at 100% power, so it's very, very important to have. Basically, kinda impossible to play without it. Then on our ring, damage to crowd-controlled enemies, max life or resource generation, lucky hit chance, crit strike chance, and aspect of puncture, of pestilent points, I mean, which gives puncture an option, or like the ability to apply poison imbuement with every third cast, making us proc bursting venoms, you know, more often, which turns into more damage. This is like pure poison build. So again, mandatory aspect. Then X-Falls Corded Signet, one of the best items in the game. It scales from our stats, so the explosions are huge, like in millions, because it can also crit. So this is what combined with, you know, spreading all of the poison with the orbiting blades and dashing and shadow stepping around, as well as using our shadow imbuement, will provide us with insane amounts of AoE, helping us clear the mobs faster. Then for our weapons, as stated before, Doomringer for more survivability, as well as the lucky hit for heal, and Condemnation, because that's how we activate the Tybalt's Will bug, because Tybalt's Will give us more combo points, and thanks to Condemnation we don't actually have to hit the enemy like 22 times to reach it, but when it procs, we immediately get the maximum amount of combo points, because Condemnation is coded that it goes from any number of points to a maximum number of points, okay? It's not coded to go from any number to 3 but from any number to maximum. So that's how we reach our, for me, it's 19 combo points because I have 17 resource, but you can go over 20. So that's it for the skill tree, Paragon Board, and gear for Twisting Blades build. Now, when we look at the Vampiric Powers here, it's pretty standard. Flowing Veins for damage over time effect, a Cursed Touch for super easy application of the curse in AoE, especially when we go into higher layers. The enemies will be alive for a long period of time, and basically just by hitting the enemy in front of you, the whole screen will be cursed. So the whole screen will be getting more damage thanks to flowing veins. It will also make the whole screen vulnerable thanks to using Prey on the Weak. Then we are of course using Ravenous for the attack speed from our movement speed, pretty much mandatory, like the best vampiric power in the game, and Undying for the insane amounts of healing. Now, let's look at the ranged build, which I'm super excited about, and 100% is gonna be the build that I'm gonna be starting the Abattoir of ZIR with. All you have to do here is like a scroll up menu, and you choose the Penshot plus Rapid Fire Theory Craft. The build as well as the skills and everything will change. As you can see, the Vampiric Powers stay the same. As I explained, the monsters will have huge pools of HP. We will be fighting them for a long time, so there really is no better Vampiric Power set than this one. Now let's look at the Paragon Board. Not much has changed here, apart from going for even more damage, because we no longer need our blind dancer's aspect on the amulet, so we can use disobedience here, so we can skip some of the armor nodes that we had to take in the Twisting Blades board and just go for even more damage. So the starting board is the same, nothing has changed here, still versatility or devious, still taking the armor nodes, you know, resistances, like as I said, completely the same. The first change comes with the cheap shot board, where we are once again taking all of the core stat nodes, again using Tears of Blood to absolutely maximize on it, but this time around we are not going through the defensive nodes to reach, you know, other boards, but we are actually going through the damage nodes, getting even more damage to crowd controlled enemies than the Twisting Blades board, while keeping the same amounts of survivability, or even more, because as a ranged rogue you can kite around the monsters quite a lot and you don't actually have to be in their face while fighting. Then we go to the left, again pretty much the same board, but here we are not going for the poison resistance, we are just maximizing on the control glyph for 145 damage to crowd controlled enemies. Again, the same board, Tricks of the Trade, with Bane and a lot of armor around here. No witness board, again completely the same, efficiency glyph, you know, and a lot of the max life nodes here to further maximize on the Doomringer. And then again to the right, the same stuff, going for Kenny to maximize on the damage from Poison Imbuement, legendary node Eldritch Bounty, and, you know, more resistances to all elements and damage taken over time reduction. So very similar boards, but here we can go with one less, you know, magic node for resistances. Here we are taking more damage. Here we are not taking the life with resistances, because this time around we are actually using it on our boots. So the Paragon board, pretty much the same stuff. Then for the skill tree, very similar as well. Like it's a lot of the stuff is just mandatory. You just cannot choose not to take it because it's just so good. Okay, so puncture, enhanced puncture, fundamental puncture, because this is a marksman ability, but it attacks with our melee weapons. So that's how we proc our condemnation. Plus all of the other good stuff like vulnerable, slow, etc. Then we are taking 5 points in rapid fire, 5 points in enhanced rapid fire. I mean, not 5, but 1. Would be nice to be able to put 5 there, but 1 point in enhanced rapid fire. And this is still something I'm like discussing about, like thinking about, and we will very likely be taking advanced rapid fire as well. But because most of the fights in Abattoir of ZIR will be AoE, which is where we are going to be using penetrating shot instead, I decided to, for now, leave it like that, because the rapid fire will be just pure priority target ability. 3 points in sturdy. This time around not taking siphoning strikes, because penetrating shot with the Tybalt's will shoot us to almost 400 lucky hit, or even above 400% lucky hit, even without using the cunning stratagem node, meaning that, yeah, we won't have like 100% guarantee proc on our bursting venom, but we will be very, very close to it. We will be like 60%, and for a lot of our other lucky hits we'll be at 100. So I decided not to take cunning stratagem, not to just abuse the lucky hit chance, but to just further increase the damage of Penshot itself. So here 5 points in penetrating shot, enhanced penetrating shot, and improved penetrating shot, 1 point in shadow step, enhanced shadow step, and disciplined shadow step, again to have 100% uptime on the Tybalt's Will, plus it's a great source of unstoppable. Dash we are getting for free, because this time around we are using Shaco, we are using Harlequin Crest, because yeah, we can put Disobedience. With the ranged build we can use Disobedience on our amulet, so that's one of the, like, another thing that favors the ranged build. We are taking 3 points into Agile, 3 points into Exploit, and we are also using Dark Shroud with Enhanced Dark Shroud and Subverting Dark Shroud. Dark Shroud gains a lot of value thanks to using Harlequin Crest / Shaco, because with every point, as you can see, let me show you, with every point in Dark Shroud we are gaining more and more damage reductions. So with Shaco we are at 5. Oh my god, can I, like, what's wrong with me and math? We are at 5 ranks of Dark Shroud. So it's extremely valuable to have. Plus we no longer have Twisting Blades to give us the movement speed, which will turn into attack speed. So Subverting Dark Shroud help with that as well. Plus, because we are ranged, we are not being hit as much. And whenever we use rapid fire we just instantly gain all of the 5 stacks, so it's very, very easy to keep the stacks up with ranged builds. Then the same stuff again, 3 points in precision imbuement, 5 points in poison imbuement, enhanced poison imbuement, blended poison imbuement, 3 points in deadly venom, 3 points in debilitating toxins, and 1 point in alchemical knowledge to get some sweet extra attack speed. As I said, it will be very likely, very easy to, you know, have 15 enemies poisoned within like a very short period of time, so it's very good to have 1 point in it. Then we are taking 1 point in innervation. The reason we are taking just 1 point here is because with ranged builds you don't do like the rotation is not basic core, basic core, basic core, because both rapid fire and penetrating shots are still very weak. in comparison to Twisting Blades when you don't actually proc the extra combo points from Thibault's Will. So we kind of want to be fishing for those. So it's gonna be 2 to 3 basic attacks into either Penetrating Shot or Rapid Fire. Okay, so we will not struggle with energy at all. Maybe you saw some of my gameplay videos of Penshot or Rapid Fire in T100 where I also don't use 3 points in innervation, and as you can see I'm always at max resource, so we definitely don't need to put more points in innervation here. And instead we go once again for as much lucky hit as possible, so putting 3 points in Alchemist Fortune and 1 point in Second Wind. Then we go for Adrenaline Rush and 3 points in Haste, with Close Quarters Combat being our main skill passive, and this time around it's actually 167% multiplicative damage, so even 20% more than the Twisting Blades version of the build. Now when we look at the gear, we kinda glanced over it already. We are using Shaco because it's a really great Uber, but once again, okay, it can be replaced with normal helmet if you do not have Harlequin crest, but then you actually have to put point in dash, and the easiest way to do so is to either take 1 point away from debilitating toxins or 1 point away from Second Wind and just put it into dash. We just need 1 skill point in it to be able to jump around the map. So that's it for the helmet. For the chest, again the same stuff: total armor, DR close, DR flat, DR distant, this time around using Umbras, which will give us Dark Shrouds for free without actually having them on the action bar. Then for our gloves, crit strike chance, lucky hit chance, 4 ranks of rapid fire, and 4 ranks of penetrating shot. Here, again, it depends how strong the end game boss is, because rapid fire is mostly gonna be used only against the boss after we spawn it. So another option here would be to take attack speed instead of rapid fire, but because we already get 80% attack speed from Ravenous, another 10% from close quarters combat in the same department, because we can get like 100% gear attack speed and 100% spec attack speed, so we are already at 90% of gear attack speed. Okay, so getting another 15 from gloves means that 5% is actually wasted. Thus I think that lucky hit is definitely the better choice here, especially in my build where we are not going for cunning stratagem, but instead we are going for as much damage as possible without relying on just more bursting venom puddles, you know, because that's essentially the only thing you get out of cunning stratagem, because cunning stratagem does not, and I repeat, does not work for rapid fire. It does not increase the amount of arrows when you are above 3 combo points, which you will be most of the time thanks to Thibault's Will. So cunning stratagem in double core, in double ranged core build is a huge waste, and if you see it in a build, then yeah, I'm sorry, but it's probably not a very good one. So yeah, not for Abattoir of ZIR, I mean. And I'm actually grateful for one of my viewers for pointing that out, like not just for the double core where it's the obvious choice, okay, but even for just a penetrating shot build. You spawn so many bursting venom puddles even without the cunning stratagem. It's better, even in T100s, to just go for more damage with the Penshot itself. It's still pretty much guaranteed to proc several of them and explode X-Fall with it. So thanks for pointing that out. So no cunning stratagem. Instead, just damage, damage, damage. Thibault's Will, once again, especially for ranged builds, they basically don't work without it, okay? Like Twisting Blades, without the buck, they work and they're strong. but ranged poison builds are not very strong at all without Tybalt's Will. Like, they benefit so much more than Twisting Blades that get just damage increase. Like, we gain the insane lucky hit increase with Penshot, we gain the insane arrow increase with Rapid Fire. So yeah, they're must have. Then for our boots, we are using dodge chance, movement speed, damage reduction while injured, and either resistance. Doesn't matter whether it's cold, whether it's shadow, poison or lightning. Pretty much what we want is any other resistance but fire, because fire we are getting from the rings, because they give us all resistance and then one inherited resistance. So we always go for fire because X-Fall can only be fire resistance. So on your boots, any other resistance but fire. The rest we get from our gems again. And here we are not using Shared Misery as we are using with the Twisting Blades build, but we are using Manglers instead. When we dazed enemies, which with the amount of lucky hit chance on this is 100% guarantee when using Penetrating Shot, the enemies actually run to us. They cannot attack us, so they run to us and then they stop because they are dazed, so they cannot use their abilities. So we definitely don't want to be we definitely don't want to be using like trick attacks to knock them down, because then they just stand on one spot. We want them to be stacked so that our penetrating shot can just annihilate them. So yeah, so we definitely want manglers here instead of Shared Misery, because with penetrating shot this is 100% guarantee, so everything we hit in AoE will be dazed, so there is no real need for Shared Misery. Plus we are once again aspect starved, so mangler. Okay, for our crossbow, again, damage to crowd controlled enemies, damage to, like, for the ranged build it's actually better to have vulnerable enemies than close enemies, but I guess most of the people will be like first trying their Twisting Blades. More people play Twisting Blades over like Rapid Fire or Penshot, so you will already have this crossbow, right? You will have it from your Twisting Blades build. So damage to close enemies, but damage to vulnerable enemies work as well, and vulnerable enemies is actually kind of stronger than close enemies, because even if you attack enemies from distance, they will eventually, like all of them will eventually be vulnerable, thanks to, as I said, scaling in HP. Thus our Prey on the Weak and a Cursed Touch will make everything we fight vulnerable, okay? Even the enemies in distance, which would not benefit from the damage to close enemies affix, will benefit from vulnerable. So either damage to close or damage to vulnerable, both work, both are great. All stats dexterity, like that's at all times. And corruption aspect, again, to gain more damage out of PI. For our amulet we are going for 3 ranks of all imbuements, total armor, movement speed this time around, because as I said, without Twisting Blades 60% movement speed we would never reach the cap to gain the most attack speed from our Ravenous, so we are using movement speed on the amulet, and 3 ranks of exploit. Anything you get, whether it's exploit, deadly venom or malice, all of these passives are great, so like don't be worried about that. Like, what's important is ranks of all imbuements, total armor and movement speed. If these 3 are, like, if you let's say have all the amulets and you have to decide whether you want the one with exploit, deadly venom, blah blah blah, decide based on the roll of your total armor and movement speed. That's the only thing that really matters. As I stated previously, it's aspect of disobedience here, which will again, while using the armor elixir, shoot us to 18,600 armor. Ring, again, the same stuff. Damage to crowd controlled enemies, max life. Here definitely max life, not resource gen. We don't need it. Not only ranged builds are not energy starved, but we already have resource gen on our Shaco, so max life here for sure. And the aspect here is trick shot, so that our penetrating shot actually deals AoE. It like splits into side arrows, further spreading the poison and doing more AoE damage. X-Fall Corroded Signet, against the best ring we can get for poison builds with Penshot, spawning like 8 bursting venom pools when you hit 10 enemies will turn this into like an atom down. I was gonna say fucking, then I changed my mind, sorry. But it will turn this into like an atom bomb with just everything is exploding, you know, all around us. So yeah, definitely a must-have item. And then the same stuff again, Doomringer and Condemnation with Penshot. You know, I keep saying it over and over, but it's really, really important to know and understand why Penshot is so strong actually with the bug, is that we will be healing a lot from the lucky hit from Doomringer. We will also constantly be applying the damage reduction from the shadow damage to surrounding enemies, because yeah, Penshot will just pretty much guarantee it. So, and I'm sorry, like you can see it of course in the builder, the gems in our weaponry are damage over time gems, but I should have stated it anyway. And yeah, then for the gems we are using any of the 30% resistance that we don't get out of our Paragon and out of our boots out of our boots. So for me here it's lightning resistance, poison resistance, and shadow resistance, because fire resistance is from the rings and cold resistance is from the boots. So this is it for my theory craft for Abattoir of ZIR. As I said, a lot of the stuff might change, and not just for my build, but for all the builds available at this point, because yeah, we need to see the scalings, we need to see what the problem is, whether we need more defensives. Maybe we will be changing some glyphs around, you know, we will be using Diminish, for example, for more DR from vulnerable enemies, for, you know, because Diminish gives us 10% physical DR from vulnerable enemies, so we might be using that instead of one of our damage glyphs. You know, we might be using Turf instead of Bane for another DR against close enemies. Like, we don't know, we have no idea what it's gonna look like. But yeah, both of my builds are aiming for 70% resistances, 18,600 armor for the armor cap against T175 monsters, also for at least 23,000 HP, and then the highest damage ever possible. Okay, I'm going for all the damage nodes, all the damage options, all the damage glyphs available for us, going for 6 boards over 5 boards. That's a lot of the other builds use. I'm just going for damage, baby. Like, I really think that's gonna be the wall, you know, based on the information from the people that played it on BlizzCon. So thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.